at all. I care about the Colorado Buffaloes. I do love me some Shedeur Sanders, don't believe that. I care about him. The rest of that mess, I don't, okay? I'm a coach trying to win just like they're trying to win games, but I could care less.
Oh, we care enough to continue that conversation and now bring in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. And JJ, the Browns listed Shedeur as their number 2 QB on the depth chart unofficially yesterday. So here we go.
Here we go, Zach. Here we go. He is the backup quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. He is one play away from seeing his first live regular season NFL action. Will it happen this week? Stay tuned to this Bat channel. Look, who knows, right? The fact here is that, and I know that we're going to talk about Joe Flacco and how Joe Flacco was the backup. Now Joe Flacco's in Cincinnati. That makes Shedeur Sanders the backup. The trade for Joe Flacco was more about getting draft pick compensation for Joe Flacco than it was necessarily about moving Shedeur Sanders up the depth chart. Okay, so let's be clear about that. One was the action, the other was incidental. They also have Bailey Zappi there, who's been on the practice squad with the Cleveland Browns. But what is true, what there is no doubt about, is that Shedeur Sanders will enter this week as the backup quarterback, one play from playing for the Cleveland Browns. Is he ready? I don't know. I don't know that the Browns necessarily know, but they have put themselves in this position. You know, they have one win, and so I think everyone understands that the Cleveland Browns do not have Super Bowl aspirations this season. And while the AFC North is a division that they could, if they had a couple more wins like the Cincinnati Bengals, they could be competing for it, and maybe Shedeur Sanders wouldn't be QB2 going into Week 6. The fact is, that is their lot in life. So no longer the scout team quarterback. He's going to be getting more practice reps. Shedeur Sanders will. Dylan Gabriel remains the starter. He will continue to be the starter so long as his play dictates that. Coaching staff can probably help him out with some play calls, unlike what they did down the stretch against the Minnesota Vikings last week. And we'll see at what point this season, I do believe Shedeur Sanders is going to play. We'll see at what point he ultimately plays for the Browns.
Yeah, and there was Coach Prime also saying that he felt that Shedeur was going to play at some point this season as well, and now we are so much closer to that actually happening. And if Shedeur is the incidental portion of this and the action is actually trading away Joe Flacco, it does feel like it's kind of like a, oh yeah, that happens. The Bengals have lost 3 straight though, but they are second in the division. He probably can't fix a bad offensive line, but can he keep them in the playoff hunt now?
Yeah, this is sort of an Instagram versus reality, right? Like, everyone on the internet's talking about Shedeur Sanders. The folks in the building are talking about, can Joe Flacco help us win a game? And so that is the reality here. That is the big part of this. Look, Jake Browning was not the guy. He lost his stinger, as one source told me, and it was clear that he was not going to help the Cincinnati Bengals stay afloat without Joe Burrow. They got lucky in winning against the Jacksonville Jaguars after he threw 3 interceptions. The turnovers continued, and so the Bengals had to do something. And so you get a rare in-division trade. For the Cincinnati Bengals, you get a very rare in-season trade. You get a rare quarterback trade. But it was needed for the Bengals, who are now going to take on about $800,000 in Joe Flacco's salary. Make no mistake, salary was important here. They're not calling the Atlanta Falcons to take on Kirk Cousins' nearly $30 million contract. Interestingly enough, didn't look like the organization had that much interest in Russell Wilson's contract, albeit closer to $1.5 million. I don't think the organization necessarily wanted Russell Wilson, or else he'd probably be a Cincinnati Bengal. We've talked about the offensive line in front of Joe Flacco. The O-line has not been very good, no matter who is back there for the Bengals. But we also have to be honest about the quarterback Joe Flacco has been ever since that incredible run at the end of the 2023 season. He goes to the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson, I think we know since he has been benched, that Flacco plays for the Colts. Doesn't really work out that well in 2024. Flacco gets benched by the Browns in 2025, heading into Week 5. When you look at qualifying passers since the start of the 2024 season, no one has a worse passer rating than Joe Flacco. And so I know a lot of folks around the league wondered, why would the Browns send a quarterback to the Bengals? Why would they help the Bengals? Well, if the Browns don't think that they're helping the Bengals, then that would be a reason why. And so we'll see how ultimately this plays out. I would anticipate that Joe Flacco will start this week against the Packers, has familiarity, of course, with that defense. Yes, he did win against the Packers earlier this year, insofar as the defense and special teams helped him win that game against the Packers. And then a short turnaround against the Steelers, again, a team that he knows quite well. So the Bengals need to go 500 until Joe Burrow can return in hopefully mid-December. We'll see if Joe Flacco can be that guy that gets them to that mark.
Crazy that still, despite all of that, Vegas still favoriting the Ravens as the favorite to win the AFC North is how things stand, despite what all things Baltimore has gone through. I thought that on Monday, maybe we'd be done with the Jonathan Gannon story. We talked about it, discussed it and everything, but we're not done. Maybe after this, Cardinals fining him $100,000 for that incident on the sideline with Amari DiMercato. I'm curious here, what's the bigger takeaway for you? Is it the team penalizing Gannon and hitting him in the pockets, or is it maybe sending a message to the rest of the team that, hey, we're going to stick up for you. We won't let anyone, coaches included, do you wrong?
It's an interesting question, and I have wondered ever since that video surfaced of Jonathan Gannon getting in Mercado's face and putting hands on him, and you just can't do that as a coach. And obviously, Jonathan Gannon ultimately apologized to the player. He apologized to the team. He clearly has been fined $100,000, not an insignificant amount of money for an NFL head coach. If he doesn't do that, is Amari DiMercato still on the Cardinals team today? Right? Could the message have been, you don't do that, and if he had just stayed away from him on the sideline, that interaction never takes place? I do wonder if Mercado is still employed by Arizona Cardinals LLC today. Now, there is the necessity of having the running back there, right? I mean, you have James Conner and Trey Benson who are banged up, and yes, you have Michael Carter there, and so there is some backstop, and I do understand that there is a need for him, but I don't know that this is necessarily sending a message to the team. I think the message that the Cardinals may have wanted to send would be that if you do this, you don't play anymore. But after Jonathan Gannon got in his face, after he put hands on him, at that point, the path changed. And you cannot cut him, you can't really punish him beyond the punishment that he already feels. So that's sort of my stance on it, that if things had just been a little different, if you got Dr. Strange involved and changed the events of the past, maybe the future looks a lot different.
Hey, for all the movies I do not see and don't get the references, I know exactly what you were saying right there, JJ, and we can move on from there. I feel good about myself. Charlie said, what was that? You know exactly what, you see what I'm doing, JJ. Thank you. JJ is fully with me. Thank you very much, as Brandon is over here rubbing his head. I'm doing a good job. I'm going to continue to do a good job and ask you about Odell Beckham Jr., who accepted that 6-game PED suspension from the NFL yesterday. He's 33 years old right now as a free agent, still wants to play, but won't be eligible now because of that suspension until week 12. All that in mind, does this affect the ability, you think, of a team signing him this season or for any moment after that?
I don't know necessarily that it impacts a team. I think a lot of teams have shown that they don't necessarily care all that much about these sorts of suspensions. You know, if you invest a lot in the player and then that suspension takes place, that's a blow. But after these suspensions take place, it's sort of, okay, that happened, and now we move forward. What really is going to be holding Odell Beckham Jr. back, or I should say, what would be holding back NFL teams that may be interested in his services, are the fact that he's 32, he's going to be 33 by the time this suspension is over. He's torn his knee twice. He hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiving season since before the coronavirus. And so, you know, as incredible, and we see right there, as incredible as the start to his career was, clearly on a Hall of Fame trajectory after 3 seasons, that's not the same Odell Beckham Jr. that we're talking about today. And so he has said and admitted that he would accept a smaller role with a team. You obviously have to be a contender. You have to want to have him in there. It didn't work out with the Miami Dolphins last year, though I do think that he got some fairly decent reviews, and good reviews, I should say, from his teammates and coaches last season. So it's certainly possible. And I don't think that a PED suspension ends Odell Beckham Jr.'s career. What could end his career is the fact that he has not been productive on the football field, really, other than a couple of games for the Baltimore Ravens a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there was the folks out there earlier in the offseason that said, oh, the reports that he was retiring. He said, no, I'm sticking around, and we'll see what happens to him in the future. JJ, stay safe out here with all the portals that might open along your way, and we'll tap in with you a little bit later. NFL